our industry, the radio industry. I'm hopeful that it will survive and thrive, but there's a chicken and the egg scenario in which it seems like there's less advertising dollars, so less money is to spend on great talent, so then we hire lesser talent, which then equals lesser ratings, and then equals lesser revenue, and it goes on and on and on. So I'm joined right now by Walter Sabo, longtime radio consultant, president of Sabo Media, and you can check him out at sabomedia.com, and Dick Taylor, who was a market manager and GM at a number of radio stations nationwide. He's now an assistant professor of broadcasting at Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green. And you can check him out online at dicktaylorblog.com. My first question, gentlemen, if PPM isn't the problem with radio, maybe in this case AM radio, or just radio in general, what is the problem?
Well, my whole catch with that headline was the fact that so much attention sometimes is being spent in the wrong areas, attention and money on the electronic measurement. And that what really people needed to get back to was spending time worrying about the content and worrying about the program. To me, radio or any audio type programming is what comes through the speaker. And there wasn't enough attention being paid to that. More of this attention was being paid to electronic measurement. And I thought that was the whole idea behind my article. Maybe the problem is if we started worrying about the content, the measurement, people would figure out who's listening to what, and it would improve automatically.
Walter, your thoughts?
The content on radio is a miracle. The content that exists on radio is spectacular, and the results prove it. Radio is the number one reach medium. More people listen to radio, more people use the medium of radio than any other medium in America every week. Not by a little, by a lot. Millennials far more than baby boomers. So, young people like radio, older people like radio, far more people listen to radio each week. It reaches far more people each week than is reached by television or by the internet. How did that happen? Nobody forced those people to listen. It happened because they really liked the show. It's an astonishing medium. In many cities, the number one radio station in audience and billing is an AM.
Yeah.
Number one audience and billing is an AM. But remember, before the FCC made those rules in the 60s, FM radio existed. It's existed since 1948, WNEW, AM and FM, New York. Nobody listened. Well, why didn't anybody listen? It was better fidelity. It was in stereo. It was available. Why didn't anyone listen? Because fidelity and quality of signal has nothing to do with it. It has to do with content. Part of the reason that FM became successful in the early 70s and mid-70s, and it was able to accelerate from it was 10% of all listening in 1970, and it went to 50% of all listening by 1978. But it wasn't until 1981 that FM radios were standard issue in automobiles. So what happened? Well, what happened was that the AM owners, the companies that owned AM and FMs, they made a very interesting choice. The arrogance of AM operators was such that they didn't think FM counted. Believe it or not, what I'm about to tell you is true. The NAB, National Association of Broadcasters, did not admit standalone AMs into the organization until about 1975. They didn't recognize it, just like in their arrogance today, they don't recognize satellite radio. Stupid. So it is stupid. So I have less than no respect for the NAB.
What?
So
it's crazy.
I know. So what happened? What happened was the AM operators said, we don't care about those FMs. They put no money into them. They said, there are all these kids bothering us. They're always bothering us. Let them do whatever they want with the FMs. We're going to go back, smoke cigars, play golf, drink martinis, and cheat on our wives. So that's what they did. The AM operators did that, and all of a sudden they come back from the golf course, and the FM stations have audience. They weren't expecting that. What do you mean they have audience? How dare they have audience? Those AM stations died in the 70s. They were dead in the 70s. All the music stations were dead in the 70s. It was done. And it wasn't because of the fidelity. That's what they always calm themselves with. No. It was better. It's because it was better.
The content was better, you're saying?
The content was much better.
Yeah.
And there were far fewer commercials.
Well, it's interesting. A really wonderful, compelling station when I was growing up was WTIC 1080 in Hartford. And Perry Urey was the general manager of WTIC. And I one time said to Perry, I said, you don't do a lot of remotes during the year with WTIC. And he says, no, we don't. He said, we go to the Eastern States Exposition. It's the biggest exposition in New England. We do the Hartford Open, the biggest golf event in the New England area. He said, that's about it. He says, because our view of life is find a crowd and get in front of it. And so what I'm saying is when you talk about what do you do with the money if you have an AM radio station, the crowd isn't on AM. It hasn't been on AM in 25 years. I think we have to be realistic here that the number one way young people are listening to radio today is on a smartphone. And so therefore, we need to be able to get that programming to the consumer where the consumer is. And the consumer of tomorrow is going to be on smartphones, and it's going to be on Wi-Fi, and it's going to be coming in that way. And there's really nothing wrong with that. Some people say, well, geez, Pandora radio isn't radio. Well, if you're listening to it on your smartphone, yes, it is, because I don't know about Walter, but when I got my FCC third class operator's license, it was called a radio telephone operator's license. Because back in the early days of broadcasting, when it was invented, we can go to Nathan Stubblefield right here, a Kentucky melon farmer. Nathan didn't want to broadcast. What Nathan wanted to do is be able to talk to his wife when he was driving his car wirelessly. And so Nathan Stubblefield was one of the first broadcasters, and he wanted nothing more than basically a cell phone in his automobile.
By the way, he was number one with women, age 64 exactly, as a matter of fact.
And so I think the thing I'm getting to is, if you are driving a car that has automatic windows, you're not going to want to go back and buy a car with crank down windows. If you live in a house with air conditioning, you're not going to want to buy your next house without air conditioning. What we find is as technology advances, people advance along with the technology. They're not going to go backwards.
What is the business model for those who own AM stations across the country? I don't care who starts. Dick, would you like to take that?
Well, my feeling about AM radio, and I think Walt kind of hits on this too when he says the most listened to station in the Northeast is 1010 Wins in their morning program. I would not disagree with that at all. WLW in Cincinnati is an incredible radio station. They've kept the heritage. What I see happening in AM radio, and this is why I say it's hard to go back in time, if you have not screwed up the heritage, you have a good AM radio station.
The business model, in my opinion, has been staring at us, and like most C students, we've ignored it, which is this. The one way to get CUME to AM, and I think Dick will agree with this, the one way to get CUME to an AM station is with play-by-play sports. But if you deconstruct that, what is play-by-play sports? It's an event. It's an event that has captivated the interests of that city. It's an event. Well, there are other events.
Like America's Got Talent.
And we can capture those other events. The number one show on New York One cable news is the Halloween Day Parade. That captures the most audience of anything in all year, and they get all the Emmys for the Halloween Day Parade. Do they have to make any of the content? No, they just cover it. So there are events, and if we step back in any given city and look at the calendar of the year, say, well, what other events can we become a part of? What other events are appointment living? Not appointment listening, but appointment living in that city. How do we attach ourselves to that? I believe we can capture a number of CUME building events just like a play-by-play game.
All right, so you guys were talking about WLW in Cincinnati. Well, Daryl Parks is the former PD of WLW, and he has a blog that I love, actually. He wrote recently,